Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. This is one-on-one. We're doing a series called Newark at a Crossroads, and totally appropriate. And could not do this series if we were not sitting down with the Mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka. We are honored to have you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We're doing this taping on the 5th of December. There's so much going on, not just in Newark, but let's talk bigger picture.
Yeah.
The decision, Staten Island, Eric Garner, Ferguson before that.
Right.
You've spoken out. Do you connect the two together, or do you see them separately?
Well, I think it's appropriate to put them together simply because the acts that took place are incredibly similar. We're talking about police and policing black and brown and poor communities, the relationship there being frayed, if at all broken, people being killed in situations that I think could have been different. And then the outcome of those trials are the same. Well, not even a trial. The lack of indictment, meaning that they didn't even want to take it to trial. And if there's any question about how a person is killed, about what happened, that at least deserves a trial. Like in a democratic country, that we at least should have the opportunity to go to trial and let a jury decide guilt or innocence.
You know, you're an elected official, you're a public policy maker, you're someone that people look to for direction. But as a person of color, with a family history of having a dad who was a leader in this community, who spoke out for many years, just as a person, particularly in the Staten Island case, when the Staten Island grand jury came back and opted not to indict the police officer involved in the choking death, the homicide, which was declared by the medical examiner in New York, what was your personal and human reaction?
Well, I was outraged. I wasn't shocked. I mean, it's Trayvon Martin, then Ferguson, then this, and many more before that.
By the way, you put them all together, though.
Yes.
You don't see Eric Garner as uniquely different because for many of us, it was so clearly that's black and white.
Well, and it would be different because what Eric Garner's case did was show America what black people see all the time. So the kind of mistreatment and the kind of arbitrary justice that takes place sometimes on these streets was videotaped, and so the world had an opportunity to see what we experience over and over again, black, Latinos, poor people, even in some of these neighborhoods. It's important that we put it all together because we need folks to understand that this is not an anomaly, right? This is something that happens quite often and too frequent.
And the it is?
The travesty of justice, right? The death and murder and attack of African Americans and Latinos and poor folks in these communities by, unfortunately, some law enforcement officials, and then after that, those cases being either put under the rug or nothing happens, or the fact that our lives are seemingly not as valuable as other people's lives in the democracy that we live in.
But in Newark, where the police are such an important presence, where the police are in fact being monitored by the federal government for a whole range of reasons, most of all because a series of cases were brought saying that blacks and Latinos were being disproportionately stopped and frisked and their civil rights were being violated. This disproportionate number who are being killed on the streets, black and Latinos, are being killed by those who are black and Latino.
That's right.
As we do this program, you spoke out right after the Thanksgiving holiday about the rash of murders and violent crime and said there's a serious emergency in the city.
Yes, sure.
That crime, that violent crime, those murders, keeps you up at night and causes you to say, what do we need to do to deal with that?
At the end of the day, we do need police, and we need policing in all of these communities. We need police in our community. We need to make sure we have some sense of order, stability in families and neighborhoods, and there's a lot of ways to address that. And one of those ways is that we have to have the resources to hire more police. Police need to be trained.
You don't have enough in Newark?
No, of course we need more police in the city.
How many are you down?
A few hundred. I don't want to say specifically what the numbers are, but we down a few hundred, and more are retiring. And we have a plan to bring police officers on annually. We're going to bring police officers on every year for the next 4 or 5 years to make
on the street.
On the street. To hire new police officers to make sure that we are covering officers who are retiring or who are leaving. But we need even more on top of that, which means we need the revenue to make that happen, and we need them to be trained.
The revenue.
And we need officers to be trained.
Talk about the training and talk about, okay, 2 things. Number 1, you don't have the revenue because of the fiscal situation in the city. Do you need state and or federal money to do that?
Well, we have won some federal grants, so and we do that to hire more officers. But yes, we are trying to work feverishly to find additional sources of recurring revenue in the city. We're going to engage Port Authority. We're going to engage our state legislature, engage the governor's office to help us get the tools that we need to raise more revenue in the city. I mean, simply because the cost of living is increasing, but the money that we have on hand is not, right? So we need the money on hand to increase with the cost without taxing the people out of existence that live in the city, where almost 3/4 of the city is either tax exempt or abated. We need folks to be able to pay taxes.
Mayor, you said, and this is an interesting issue because it goes back to police minority relations, it goes back to the issue of trust as well. You said it is important that police wear body cameras.
Right.
Why?
Well, I think it protects police officers as well. It protects them from frivolous lawsuits. It monitors the situation. It also, I think, even in Newark, when we have our special units out, when they pull out a camera, the camera probably works even better than the police. The camera doesn't just make the police officers behave in a certain way. It also makes the residents and everybody else behave in a certain way.
But we had the cameras in Staten Island. It showed what it showed, and then what happened.
Right, but so we needed the camera. And because what the camera did was outline to everybody in America clearly what happened. The other part that the camera doesn't fix is the justice system. The justice system has to be fixed by human beings, by individuals.
Feds need to come in here?
By folks to make sure that justice is done.
Feds need to come in?
Come in where? To Newark?
Feds need to come in and step in aggressively in cases like Eric Gardner and cases like Michael Brown. Feds need to come in aggressively and deal with police departments that have a history of civil rights violations, like Newark.
Well, the feds are doing that. So
right. More aggressively?
The DOJ is. I think the DOJ is here now, as aggressive as they could be.
People don't know that, Mayor. They go, oh, so the Department of Justice is managing the police department. That's not true.
No, they're not managing it. What they do is they put a monitor in place, right? We sign an MOU that suggests
memorandum of understanding,
right, to outline the specific things that they think need to happen. Police officers need to be trained. You need a review board.
Right.
You need cops to wear cameras. So they give you all of these things, and the things I just said are items that are actually on Newark's MOU. Right. So this happens in many cities around the country. So I think it's a positive thing and should continue to go forward. I do think the federal government does need to step in some of these cases that they believe that people's civil rights have been violated, and begin to take matters into their hands.
Mr. Mayor, obviously we could sit and talk about crime all day because for so many people it dominates their life. But as someone who's spent his professional life as an educator, as an educational administrator at Central High School, you've been a principal there, you care deeply about this as well. And in many ways it's not separate. Talk about the education of the public school children in the city of Newark. Where is it now, and where do you want and need it to be?
Well, we right now, because of what's happening in the city, there's been a lot of conflict and a lot of confusion.
Well, how's there? I hadn't read.
A lot of issues, and
You're going to be able to get together with the superintendent and work things out.
Fundamentally, hey man, I wish it would sound like, can we all just get along?
Yeah, right. Which shouldn't be that difficult. What's the biggest beef there?
Fundamentally, there's some things that need to happen. But I think some of the biggest things is people need to have the right to be able to go to school in the neighborhoods where they live. If they want to do that, they should be able to be afforded that opportunity. By the mere fact that they're Americans, they live in this city, they have a right to go to school in their neighborhood, right? So that's number one. And then we, as public servants, have to make those schools work. Our job is not to sell off our assets to everybody. Our job is to make the
What do we
public sector work.
sell our assets?
Well, you
Throw it
mean
off there.
the school buildings, give them away, do these kinds of things. Our job is to make these schools work. Not say this school is a failure, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. The question becomes, what have you done to improve the quality of education in that school, right? And so I think that's our job to do, to make sure that these institutions actually work for the children that live in this community. And I think that there is a way, so there's all kind of schools in America. There always has been. We have parochial schools, you have private schools, Montessori schools, and now charter schools. You have all of these schools, but they don't threaten the public school institution as it stands, right? So if schools want to come, they have a right to do that.
Are you okay with the idea of having parents be able to choose between public schools and a non-public school, and give that parent a voucher to go to?
No.
Not?
I'm
Bad
opposed,
idea?
I'm opposed to vouchers unilaterally.
Across the board?
Across the board.
A pilot program?
No programs. I don't
Because,
think
Mr. Mayor?
there's no evidence that it's worked. The places where they did it,
Milwaukee doesn't work.
Didn't work. The research and the data shows that. That's not the mayor's opinion. So it hasn't worked in a way that would merit us to do something like that and defunct.
So let's just work with the public schools.
I say we do work with the public schools. And not only that, but if you're interested in having opportunities for other schools to exist, you have a right to do that. I mean, even some of the early discussions around charters were about lab schools.
Charter schools.
Lab schools that allow them to do things, and if they were successful, to spread those practices across the public domain. Right now, it's just a way that we can now take the place of public school, and we don't need to do that. We don't need to take place of public school. I think public school is a fundamental piece of our democracy, the way it is, centralized school boards, parents and community having a right and a say-so in how schools are governed. All of that is important, right? And it has to be free and unfettered to all Americans, to new Americans, to any kind of American. We ought to have those institutions.
Mayor, before I let you out here in a couple minutes, your dad, he sat right in that chair. It may have been one of the last interviews he did before he passed. He did an extraordinary interview with us. He read some of his writings. He was an extraordinary writer. You write poetry. You know, it means a lot to you. In fact, you wrote something called Black Girls Learn Hard Love, collection of poems. Before I let you out here, your writing of poetry means a lot to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Because?
One, I'm an artist. I grew up in a household full of art and literature and music, so it's a part of my DNA, and it's a part of something that, I love. So, yeah, I like to write and read at the same time.
Helps you govern?
Of course it does.
How so?
Well, it keeps me balanced, and it also gives me a different perspective that I think that, doesn't come necessarily with the job, right? It gives me a different kind of perspective and a different view of the importance of people, of art, of music, of culture, and how to change people's attitudes, minds, their behavior.
You love art.
A
place like this is important.
Right.
NJPAC's important, isn't it?
NJPAC is a beautiful place. We love
Tell
it here.
folks
in the
why who
city.
may not have been here yet. Tell folks. They haven't come to NJPAC. Tell them why they should come.
Oh,
Plug.
NJPAC is beautiful. It is probably one of the gems of the city. Incredible programming here. I probably spend more time at NJPAC now than I do in my own home. I mean, it is an incredible edifice, and we have rich and wonderful programming out of here.
How about your town hall meetings here, right?
Yeah, we had a town hall meeting
Just the other night.
Yep, and the next one is in February.
Beautiful.
John Schreiber, who runs the place, is an incredible guy, and he is expanding arts into the community, which is what we need desperately here in Newark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stay right there. Appreciate it.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJPAC has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and by the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, in cooperation with NJTV, and 13 for WNET. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJPAC has been provided by Prudential Financial's Global Communications Department, TD Bank, the New Jersey Education Association, Cohn Resnick, the Fidelco Group, NJ Best, and by Josh S. Weston. Promotional support provided by NJ.com, Small News, Big News, True Jersey, and by NJ Biz, All Business, All New Jersey. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.